This is part 2 of our installing DNS onto Suse Linux. In part 1, went through some preconditions, some information we needed to know. We mounted the ISO file and then went into YAST and completed the installation of DNS, added a few records, and ended that video. And now we've got another video here where our goal is to test DNS. We're going to test it both on the Linux machine, and then I'm going to jump over to my client 1 and test from there. So what I've done is I've opened a terminal prompt. I went to utilities here and I opened a GNOME terminal. That took me to here. And the same tools that we use in Windows, NSLOOKUP, is honored on Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and issue a command here. NSLOOKUP, give it one of my records, www.ak.bobstaco.com. And it resolves. It gives me the IP address back. It tells me that the local server did the work. 127, of course, is the internal address, and then port 53. So we're good to go. The server, anyways, the server, as far as Linux is concerned, DNS is fully functional. Let's go over to a client machine. Let's step away from that server and go to another server. So here I am on my client machine, my Windows 8 machine, and I've opened a command prompt, and I'm going to also use NSLOOKUP. Okay, now currently it's pointing to my DC1, which it's supposed to, but let me switch that. Let me tell it to point to 192.168, mycase.18.100. Now, if you have names set up, if you have names set up for lnx.yourstate.bobstaco.com, you could just put the name in here. But the IP address is always more fundamental, and you can start there with troubleshooting. Okay. The server did answer, it responded back, and now I can ask it that same question. I can say, give me a name lookup if you can for www.ak.bobstaco.com. And there we go. We could look at any of our other records. We've got RDP. We could ask it to resolve that. Oh, I spelled it wrong. RDG, RDP. Okay. There we go. And then our test record, just to verify that it really is our server, we created that weird record called bogus. And sure enough, there it is. Well, the testing is good, but we're still not done. All we've done now is test within our own network from first the server and then from a client. But we need to go out to the internet and see from the internet's perspective, looking back into our network, can we resolve names? So let's go ahead and exit out of this. I can get up to the top of the screen again. There we go. And this lookup. Now we have to think this through. From an internet request, it would the requesting client would go through the iterations of going up to the root servers around the globe, then being directed down to .com servers, TLD servers, from there being directed to a CITE server that's outside of our project. We have DNS on DC1 and DC2. We have internet-facing DNS for just bobstaco.com. But since AK is a child of that, then I needed to do a delegation on the parent bobstaco.com server to tell it for answering for ak.bobstaco.com, forward it to 198.187.236.58 in my case. Same for you. Whatever state you've got, there's already been a delegation done on the parent DNS server to tell it that when it gets a request for your state, to not try to answer it, but to forward it on to your internet address. And then when we do that, it's going to wind up at the front end of our pfSense firewall. From there, the pfSense firewall will listen on port 53 because we created a rule. We created a NAT rule. It'll listen on port 53. When something comes in, it will then use NAT and translate that to our internal network and then forward it on to our Linux server inside. So that's the full path of making this all happen. So to do this, we use the server function, and I'm going to pick one of the Google servers, 8.8.8.8. Okay, it responds back that we're there, we're connected. Now I'm going to ask it for bogus.ak.bobstaco.com. And there it is, it resolved it. So we're good to go. Now, I got to tell you, when you're testing this, The internet servers do cache, and so if you find that you get an incorrect response and you go and fix it, you've got to give it time for all of the caches to clear out between where the request was initiated and where it was answered. But we do get an answer here, and again, we could enter our other hosts. We could enter www. And the whole point of what we're doing here is that we're not using our server to do this. We're going out onto the internet and using one of the public DNS servers. And this would be the exact same as how anybody from the internet would be looking into our network to get this name resolved. So all right, we're good to go. DNS is functional, and this will be the last of our DNS configurations videos on Linux. And I hope you find this helpful.